Are you guys ready for math class number 5? Oh, yes, you are. Now, you're going to love this class. I promise you. Our students always tell us that this is one of the best questions that they can have on the exam. And on the exam, this is going to be a big chunk of the questions because UBC explanations on those questions are always complicated and they like to put those questions on the exam on purpose. But you're going to love them because they are very basic ones. Yes, we're going to do 5 to 6 steps in each questions, but those questions are going to be nice and basic ones. They always going to repeat themselves and there's not much, as long as you understand what to do, just listen to my explanations, you're going to fly through those questions. You're going to love them, okay? I promise you. Now, the class number 3 and then class number 4, we did a lot of yields. We worked with the percentages. Those questions more complicated than what I'm going to show you right now. This is going to be easy. It's going to be simple, okay? So if you could handle the math class number 3 and if you finish the class number 4, this class number 5, as I said, you're going to just love it. Okay, so let's get in. I'm going to show you the formulas. I'll show you what this class is all about. I don't know if you see the formula. We call them the PIMP questions or the PIMPO questions. Yes, we have a lot of the formulas in here. You know, we have pimps and pigs coming out, and we have PP formulas. It's easy to remember them, but the whole class today is all about the PIMP questions, okay? And PIMPO. It's pretty much the same thing. Okay, so if you open your notes on the first page in there, you will see all of the things that we want you to know about those questions. The hardest thing for a lot of students is when they do mock exams or when they start doing that real exam, it's to recognize the questions itself. So that's why every class when we teach you, I always tell you, how do you know if it's a PIMP question? How do you know if it's a PP questions? I always ask you those questions because I want you to recognize those questions, okay? So the PIMPO or the PIMP questions are the easiest one to recognize, okay? Now, what is this questions is all about? So this is the questions. In real life, not a common thing. Not often people go directly to the vendor. Who's the vendor? Vendor's the seller, right? So somebody who goes directly to the vendor and asks them to give them a vendor take-back mortgage. So basically the same look. The bank's rates right now at 20%, just an example, okay? In 1982, 1983, that's when the rates were very, very high. So they jumped from 5% to 20%, 25%. And people said, we cannot afford this. There's no way I can afford a mortgage payments with 20% interest. Can you imagine if you have that? So what they did, oh great. So what they did, they went directly to the sellers of the property and they said, look, vendor, would you give me a mortgage instead of the bank? But maybe you can give me a better rate so I can afford it. So this is where usually when the bank's rates are so high, people would go directly to the seller of the property and they ask them to give them a mortgage. So that could be one of the scenarios. Or you could have been not approved by the bank and now you go directly to the seller and says, look, maybe, you know, charge me a bit higher, but just give me a mortgage. So not a common thing in real life, but for the example, we need to understand what would happen if you're working for that seller. And if the buyer comes along, how much cash would the seller pocket at the end of the transaction? So that's kind of what the questions is all about. Assumption of the mortgage. We've done this in chapter 24, debit and credits. Remember that stuff? So what is an assumption when somebody wants to assume somebody else's mortgage? So again, if I come to you and I say, look, I want to buy your property and you fix it at such a good rate at 2%. Right now the rates are 10%. So would you give me, can I assume your mortgage? Because you still have 10 years, no, not 10, but let's say 5 years left on your term. And you say, yeah, sure, just buy my house and assume my mortgage. In real life, it's not as easy, but for the exam, that's what we need to know. So when you're taking over somebody else's mortgage. So agreement for sale is the same idea when you go directly to the seller and ask them to give you money. So everything to do except the bank. Basically, that's what happens. You go to somebody else to ask for money. Now, this is not a keywords. This is my explanation to you what's going to happen right now, a preview of coming attraction. So the hint questions for these questions will be this. So when they asking you, what is the market value of a mortgage? So when they asking you, what is the market value of a mortgage? Or a lot of times they will ask you, what is the market value of an offer? This is probably the most common question you will see. You will see at least usually 4 questions in the exam on this PIMP questions. Okay, that's the usual number. So market value of a mortgage and market value of an offer. When we go through the questions, I'm going to show you the difference. I'll show you what are they looking for and what's the difference is, but that's going to be one of your keyword when they ask you, what is the market value of this offer? So if I was working for that seller who gives a vendor take-back mortgage, and if that seller gives a lower rate to the purchaser, then as an agent, I would tell him that he's not going to pocket as much money as he thinks. So if the offer comes at 500,000, and if the seller of the property gives a lower rate, he's not going to put 500,000 in his pocket. It's going to be less. It's going to be a lower offer at the end. So this is what we're going to do right now. We're going to work on those questions. Okay. In the beginning, when I'm going to explain them, I will give you a lot of stories, and I'm going to give you a lot of explanation why we do things. But as soon as you understand the formula and as soon as you know what to do, honestly, we don't have to think much. We're just going to plug in the numbers, do the questions, and be done with them. That's how it's going to work. Okay. So the biggest clue that you're working with the PIMP question. So again, PIMP, and I'll explain you why we call them PIMP, or the PIMPO, right? So it could be PIMPO, is where when the question has at least usually 2 interest rates in the same question. Why would it be 2 interest rates? Because they will compare the bank rates, what's the current market rate right now at the banks, with the rate that the seller wants to give you. Okay, so for that reason, you will see the questions, and in those questions, you will have not just 1 interest rate, and that's what we've been doing so far. We've never seen a question with 2 rates in the same question, but now you will see that one question gives you, let's say, J at 3% and J 5%. So that's how you know it becomes your PIMP or PIMPO question. Okay, the answers they will be asking in dollar amounts, so that's something they're always looking for. So when you were looking for a PP questions, right, when we work with the yield questions, those yield questions answers were always in what? In percentages, right? So that's what the PP is. It's percentage we're looking for. But in these questions, we're going to be seeing all the money will be showing up as money. So that's good. This is just a formula for your timeline, right? So when we're gonna do the term, you already know how to do nuggets and fry stuff, but this is gonna be your cheat sheet. I'm not gonna explain you the stuff right now. When we go through the questions, I'm gonna introduce you to all of those formulas. So when we're going to do the PIMP questions or the PIMPL questions, we're going to go through 4 to 5 steps. It depends what they're looking for. So step 1 and step 2 is always the same. I don't know if you noticed, guys, but when we're looking for the outstanding balances, principal reductions, PP questions, we're always looking for that payment first. We'll find the payments, then if we have the term that's given to us, then we're going to do the timeline. So this I stands for the timeline. So we're looking to see, do we have a 5-year term? Do we have a 2-year term? And if we do have it, then we do this nuggets and fry steps. Okay, so first 2 steps is exactly the same. So step number 3, this is where things changes. Now, with these questions, remember what I told you, you'll have 2 different rates. So for example, don't stay where you are. Don't go anywhere. But if I look at the question 1, it says that the seller of the property is willing to give 14%. Just kind of to show you. And then the bank's rate right now are 19%. Do you see how in the same question we have 2 interest rate? So what we're going to be doing, we're going to be using the first rate to find the payment, and then the second rate, this is what we're going to be using that in step number 3. So step number 3, I'm going back. Step number 3 talks about the market value of a mortgage. So we're talking about putting the new rates. We're going to do the second and PEP and based on the market rate, based on the rate of the banks. That's what the M stands for, market rate, right? That's the market rate of the banks. So the second rate will be shown in here. And then we're going to press the present value. When you press PV, what shows you? It shows you the cash. It shows you how much that seller of the property, which is the vendor, will pocket at the end of the transaction. So present value will show him the market value of a mortgage. So PIMP and PIMPO, the only difference between those 2 is what you're looking for. If they're looking for the market value of a mortgage, you press PV and you're done with the question. If they're looking for the market value of an offer, which most question will, they ask you usually for the offer. They say, how much is the value of this offer? With the offer, you need to add cash. Cash will be given to you in the question. So if it's not given to you, you have to find it yourself. And that's it. So I'm going to show you all those steps in the questions. The first few questions, we're going to go nice and slow. So be patient with me. I'm going to give you an explanation why we do things, but then we're going to fly through the questions. And you will see why we like this question so much, because there's not much thinking to do. You don't have to think. And in real life, would you ever use it? So let's look at the question number 1. So let's look at the question number 1. So I always ask you guys, what are the keywords? How do you know what you're looking at? So how do you know if it's a PIMP question? You look and see if you have the 2 rates in the same question. So yes, in this question, I have 14% that's given by the seller, vendor of the property, and the current market rate right now is 19%. So as long as you have 2 of them, guess what? It's only an indication that will be a PIMP or the PIMPL question. The second thing what I'm looking for to see what are the answers are in, and right now I see that every single answer in this question they're given to me in what? They're given to me in money signs. And the last thing I'm looking for, what are they looking for? Are they looking for the offer or they're looking for the mortgage? So in this case, they ask you what is the market value of an offer. And if they're looking for the offer, what does that mean to you? That means we need to add the cash at the end. So that's it. That's kind of a keyword. First couple of questions, we will go slow. Then we're going to fly. So let's look through the question. Let's read the question itself. So we have an offer of 235. So somebody came to the seller and says, look, here's my offer, 235,000. I'll give you cash of 85,000. So we have cash offer. And they expect the seller to give a mortgage of 150,000 at 14% back to the purchaser. So if I was the seller of the property, I say, okay, sounds good to me. I'll give you 150,000. You give me 85,000 cash. I'll pocket 235,000, right? But if you were my real estate agent, so if you were working for me or my mortgage person, you would say to me, Yana, guess what? You're not going to pocket 235,000. And I'll say, what do you mean? I'm giving the mortgage of 150 and I'm getting the cash of 85. That's 235,000. And you say to me, Yana, you're going to give a lower rate than the banks. So if you took your money and invest them into anything else, you would get that 19%. But because you're giving a lower rate than the current market rates, you're not going to pocket as much. We could go into details and I can show you more things, but honestly, I want to keep it as simple as possible. So don't overcomplicate it. Just know if the seller, the vendor, gives a lower rate to the banks, they're not going to pocket as much. So that means they're not going to pocket this 150. 85,000, yes. If I give you cash right now of 85,000, of course it's going to be worth 85,000 because that's how much you have in your pocket. But that 150 will be held for 25 years. So that means that seller is not going to see this 150 over 25 years. And it's going to be worth at the end less. Why? Because he's given a lower rate to the banks. That's to keep it simple. Okay, so basically if you were the agent working for me, for the seller, he says, Yana, you're not going to pocket as much. Your offer that coming to you, it's worth less than 235,000. And that's all I want you to know at this point. Just know if the rate is lower that the seller offers to the buyer, that means he's not pocketing as much as given to you. And that's the whole idea of those questions. We have to tell them at the end, say, hey, this is your actual offer. That's how much money you're going to pocket at the end of the transaction. So that's it. Let's just work on the steps. Don't overcomplicate it because in real life, we'll never use it. Even my mortgage people, we don't do this. So what we're going to do, we're going to work in 5 steps. Step number 1, we're going to find the payment first. Then we're going to do the timeline. Then we're going to do market rate, which is that 19%, present value. And then because they're looking for the offer, we're going to add the cash. Right? It's simple. So we're going to work in 5 steps right now. Step number 1. If you're looking to find a payment, you're always going to be using the first rate that's given to you in the question. Keep it simple. So you're going to use that 14% to find a mortgage payment, and then that 19% you will use it in step number 3. So whatever is the first rate that's given to you, don't overcomplicate it. You're going to use that first to find the payment. So I'm just going to take the numbers, plug them in. So I'll put 14 in here. Compounded semi-annually. What else do we have? N is given to us for 25 years. I'll just shift N right away. Then what else do we have in the question? 5 years term. So the term is going to be in step number 2. So because we have so many different steps in here, just make sure that you understand when we find in the payment, future value has to be 0. And in step number 2, when you're looking for that outstanding balance, that 5 years will show up in there. So I'll just put 5 in here for now. Monthly payments. So payments frequency is 12. And that's it. So now we're going to be finding the payment in this question as a step number 1. So my first question to you is this. What are you going to put into your present value? What is your present value? Is that a 235? Or is that a 85,000 cash? Or is that a mortgage at 150? I hope you said mortgage, because you don't pay a mortgage payments on your offer. You pay the mortgage payments on the mortgage that you will receive. So keep it simple. Present value is your mortgage, whatever is mortgage given to you in the question, and the cash you will be using in step number 5 when you're looking for the offer. That 85,000 will show up as a cash in here. So I would just do it like this. I would put plus 85,000 right at the end, so I don't forget it, and that will give me my offer. Are we ready? So let's find the payment first. So let's start with the conversions. So I'll put all the numbers. By now you should be doing those conversions on your calculator without even plugging them into the formula here. Okay. So 14, 2, and 12. It should be 13 point something. I'm going to cross off your after. Future value. What are you going to put into the future value, by the way? You're going to put that 0 into the future value. Why? Because when we have a question with multiple steps, before we've done the questions when everything is given to you and you just plug them all in and that's it. But because we have step 1, step 2, step 3, when you're looking for the payments, the rule is future value is always 0. Okay, so we're going to do the impact first, and then we're going to find the payment. So let's do this together. 14 shift norm, 2 shift PYR shift effective, 12 shift PYR shift norm. Mine come up to 13,608.3 something. Okay, so nice and close to 14, not too far, so you know you've done a good job. After you finish it, you're going to cross off your PYR. You know everything right now will be monthly because your last PYR was 12. So now what do? You come back to your N, you're going to do 25 shift N. It will come up as 300 months. It will multiply this 25 by your PYR, which is 12. Skip the PYR, present value, 150,000 PV. Skip the payment, future value, 0 plus minus future value, and now you press the payment. So payments, by now, you should be really fast at finding those payments, should come up as a negative 1,760.81. And if you look at the question, if they say absolutely nothing about the payments, if they just said calls for the monthly payments, and if you would skip on this part, round it up to the next higher dollar, then the answers would be off. Okay? So it's your job to always check the question. So if they say absolutely nothing, so if you didn't have this in the question, then you would bump it up to the next higher cent. What would that be? If it's 81, then you would bump it up to the 82. But in this question, they want it to be mortgage payments to be rounded up to the next higher dollar. So what is the next higher dollar from here? It's 1761. So from 1760, you go to the next higher dollar. So 1761 plus minus PMT. So let's do this. Step number 1 has to be finished. So even though, like if you had to bump it up to the next high cent, you would do the same thing. We're going to bump it up to the next high dollar. Your job is to plug it back in. So let's do this. 1761 plus minus PMT. So plug it back in. Make sure it's negative. Make sure it shows up on your screen as is. So 1761 plus minus PMT. Okay. So only when you see that payment as a negative number on your screen with the next higher dollar, step number 1 is done. And then we can go for step number 2. So what is the step number 2? Step number 2 is what we're referring to the nuggets and fries. So if you have the term in the question, like in this question, you have a term that is different from the amortization. Money is given to you for 25 years, term is 5 years. So guess what? You're going to do your nuggets and fries. So let's do this together. So if it's 5 years term, then what do you do? If it's 5 years term, what do? You do 5 shift N. Let's do this together. Do 5 shift N. It will come up as 60 months. So if you multiply 5 by PYR, which is monthly, then it will come up as 60 months. And then you press your future value. So press future value. How do you know if you've done a good job? The future value should be always negative, and the future value should be lower than your present value. So mine came up as 144,886.24. So my future value right now is lower than my present value. So I know I've done a good job. Why does it have to be lower? Because you already paid some money in those 5 years. And now you owe them a lower amount than what you started with. So step number 2 is finished. Now, step number 3, it's something new, something we haven't done before. And this is where you're going to be, this M is your market rate. This is where you're going to look at that second rate that's given to you in the question, and you're going to do the impact in here. So you're going to plug it back into the calculator on top of everything, on top of this future value right now. You're going to put that new rate inside of it to show the calculator that right now the market rates are higher than what the seller is planning to give. So just pull up the second rate, keep it simple. We have 19% compounded semi-annually, and payment frequency is still going to be monthly. So if payments were monthly here, they have to be monthly here. If payments were quarterly here, then you'll put 4 in here. If payments were daily, then you would do the same thing in here. So make sure that it's all in the same frequency in here. So what we're going to do right now, step number 3, right now I see that 144,000 on my screen. On top of it, I'm going to do my second impact, and that's what I'm going to do right now. So hopefully you don't have to write it down anymore for yourself. But how do you know if you've done a good job? It should come up nice and close to that original number. So it should be 18 point something. So let's do this together. 19 shift norm, don't clear nothing, okay? 2 shift PYR, shift effective, 12 shift PYR, shift norm. Mine came up to 18,288, okay? And pattern is finished. Step number 3 is done. Step number 4 is one of the best steps ever, because this is what we're looking for something. And what are we looking for? To see how much is the seller going to pocket at this point? How much is this 150 is worth right now at that lower rate? So what do? You're going to press the present value. You're just going to press the button. I always say it's not a pimp, it's a pimp formula. So it's a pimp or pimple. So make sure that you don't press the future value. If you press the future value by mistake, you'll have to redo the whole question from the beginning. So press the PV, pimp, right? When you press PV, it will come up as positive 127,385.12. right? So that is your mortgage value. So if they were looking for the market value of a mortgage, you would stop right here. But they're looking for the market value of an offer. And if they're looking for the offer, that means you must to do what? You must to add the cash. So make sure that you add the cash to this 127. So if sometimes they hide the cash away from you, you'll have to find it. But you need to add the cash at the end if they're looking for the offer. So what do we do? On top of your screen right now, you do regular plus 85,000, regular equals, and it will come up to 212,385.12. Right? So I can see that's my answer number 4. Right? It's nice and close. Doesn't matter about the last penny. They will never trick you on pennies in the end. Okay, so that's it. So that's the answer. That's what we do. I know it sounds like it's a lot of steps, but guess what? You're going to love this question. This is going to be the best questions ever. Let's do the next one. We'll go faster. Let's do question number 2. An offer of 235,000 is accepted. It's made out of the cash down payment of 65,000 and the vendor supply mortgage of 250. The vendor gives the 3% per annum compounded semi-annually, and the loan has an amortization of 15 years, term of 2 years, and monthly payments rounded up to the next higher dollar. Market rates of the equivalent mortgage rates of the banks is 8%. Look at that difference. You come to the seller and he gives you 3%, but if you go to the banks, it's 8%. That's a huge difference. So if you were working for that vendor, is he going to make that 435,000? He's going to pocket less money. Why? Because he's offering the lower rate. What they're looking for, they say, what is the market value of an offer? So if they're looking for the offer, that means you must have what? Cash. So what I would do if I look at that question, I'll find the cash in the question straight up. And what I'm going to do with that cash, I'll just put it straight up right at the end in here. I'll just add that 65,000 so I have it and I'm not missing out on this. Okay, so I put that plus 65,000 right at the end. So let's do the question. Pimple? Yes, it is. It's a pimp hole because we're looking for the offer. If it's a pimp, we would stop right here. So we have 2 rates. We have everything given to us in money signs, and we have some cash in here, which is awesome. How do we start with questions? Step 1 is always the same. We're going to find a payment first. What would you use for your J's? Which rate would you use? Keep it simple. Whatever is the first one is given to you. So you're going to put that 3 on the as your J rate in here. So J compounded semi-annual. So J2 equals 3. Amortization for 15 years. So that's your N. 15 shift N will come up as 180 months. 2 years term. So anything to do with the terms, you're going to plug it in step number 2. So I'll just put that 2 in here for now, knowing that I'm going to be using that. To find the term calls for the monthly payments, rounded up to the next higher dollar. So payments are monthly. And my question is, if we're looking for the payments, what would be your present value? What number would you use? Would you use the 435, 65, or 250? Your present value is always your mortgage. So if it's given to you mortgage, that's what we use in here. So mortgage in this question is 250,000. So we'll put that in. And if I'm looking for the payments, what would be the future value? It has to be 0. Because we have multiple steps in here, future value, if they say there's an outstanding balance off, you're not going to put it in here. You'll wait for that to be in step number 2. But when we're looking for the payments, future value better be what? It has to be 0. So what we're going to do, we have enough information, so let's find your NPEPN first, then we're going to find the payment. So hopefully you can do that NPEPN nice and fast now. It should come up nice and close to that 3%. Okay, so 3 shift nom. Let's do it together. 2 shift PYR shift effective, 12 shift PYR shift nom. 2.98142. Okay, so we have that. After you finish the NPEPN, you're going to cross off your IYR, PYR as usual, because we already have this 12 that's sits in PYR, and we have that 2.984 sits in here. Let's do the N from the top. 15 shift N will come up as 180 months. Next one, 250,000 PV. Skip the payment, 0 plus minus future value. Don't skip future value. And then the payments you're going to press, and it should come up as a negative number. You tell me what do you get in there. Mine come up as a negative 1724.22. Is that what you got? So 1724.22. So if they say nothing in the question, so they did not say next higher dollar, what would you do? You would take that payment and you would increase it to the next higher cent. And you would manually plug it back in because you know you cannot move on to step number 2 until you finish the step number 1. So what do we do right now? They want us to increase that payment to the next higher dollar. So what is the next higher dollar from 24? We go to 25. So let's do this. 1725 plus minus PMT. We'll put it as a step number 1 right now. So 1725 plus minus PMT. And when you see that 1725 plus minus PMT on your screen, it should come up as a negative with lots of zeros in the end. That's how you know step 1 is done. And that's when we can move on to step number 2. So what do we have in step number 2? You look to see if I have any term that is different from my amortization. And here, yes, amortization 15, term is 2 years. So what do? You do your nuggets and fries as usual. So what are you going to do? 2 shift N. And when you do 2 shift N, we'll multiply 2 by 12. We'll make it as 24 months. And then you press the future value. And when you press the future value, it will come up as a negative number. And it should be lower than your PV. So let's do this together. 2 shift N. Did you get that 24? Press future value, negative 222,736.17. That's what I got. So negative 222,000, lower than 250. So I know we've done a good job in here. And after you finish to find the outstanding balance, we move to step number 3. Now, what is the step number 3? This M stands for the market rate, which is the second J. And we know that we use the first J, which is 3% to find the payment, and the second one is your market rate J. So we'll use this 8% in here. So it's 8 compounded semi-annually. So J2 equals 8, and the payments frequency is still going to be the same as what we had before. So we're going to do the second conversion from 8, 2, and 12. Should be come up nice and close. Together, 8 shift nom, okay, 2 shift PYR shift effective, 12 shift PYR shift nom, 7.8 698. Okay, nice and close, not too far. If you made a mistake, just redo it, as long as you don't press any other buttons in here. So when PEPM is finished, so step number 3 is done when you have done your PEPM stuff. Okay, so PIM, the next step is a PIMP. So you're gonna press your present value to see how much is this mortgage gonna be worth right now. So what do? Don't press future value, present value, press PV. And when you press PV, it will come up as 228,586.61. Okay, that's what you should be getting for your present value. Now what is this? Is that the answer? No, because that is a market value of a mortgage. So if they were looking for the mortgage, you would stop. But they're looking for the market value of an offer. So if it's an offer, then what do? You add cash every single time you exception. So on top of your screen, you do regular plus 65,000, regular equals, and it will come up to 293,586.61. Okay, and that is your answer. So now we can look back at the answers, and we see that 293,586.61 as you answer number 4. So what is this? That is the market value of an offer. So basically, the seller thought that he's pocketing 435,000, but because he gives such a lower rate to the borrower, he's only pocketing 293,000. Isn't that crazy? Just because you're changing the rate, that's what happens. But you don't have to overthink. Just keep it simple. Follow the formula. Just do your pimps. We love pimps. You know, we like to pimp out. Let's do question number 3. Developer is offering a mortgage loan of 1 or 2,000 at 19.5% compounded semi-annually. So now instead of going to the seller of the property, you go directly to the developer. And he says, look, you want to get a development for me? You want to buy one of the units? I'll give you a mortgage of 1 or 2, and I'll give you a rate of 19.5. And on each of 16 units of the condominium development, the mortgage have monthly payments, 5 years term, and a 20 years amortization, and each unit is priced at 130,000. I'll explain what we need this for. How do you know if it's a pimple question? Scan the question. What is the first thing that you do? You scan to see what do we have in here. And you see that in the same question that we have 2 different rates. Now you see the first one is higher now, doesn't really matter. So that means the developer wants to make more money of you if you come and get the mortgage directly from him. But for you, it doesn't really matter. All that matters to you is to recognize the question. You have the 2 rates, then the next thing you're looking for to see what do they want. And in this question, they want the offer. So if they want the offer, that means you need to have some cash. It is a must. It's not optional. Do you see any cash in the question? Do you? We'll need to find it. At some point, we'll have to find it. So we're not going to focus on this one now, but just know at the end, we have to add it. We have to add the cash. So it is a pimple question because we have the 2 rates. So in order for you to work in step number 1, to find the payments, which rate would you use? You see, you don't look which one is highest, which one is the lowest one. You just see which one is the first one that's given to you in the question, and that's the one you're going to be using. So you're going to be using 19.5%. So 19.5 compounded semi-annually, payments monthly. Okay? And then the second rate we'll be using right here, which is 18 compounded semi-annually. Okay, so just to show you that the first rate is always the one that we use, what I was giving to you in the question, is to find your payment. What else do we have? He wants to give you this money for 5 years term and the 20 years amortization, so the N is 20 years. I'll do the shift N. It will come up at some point as 240 months. What would you put in your present value if you're looking for your payments? What would that be? What's the amount of money you're going to put in here? It has to be mortgage, but how much? They say the mortgage loan will be 102. You see that? It says mortgage loan is 102, and the unit price will be 130. What you put in here is always your mortgage. So you're going to put 102,000 as a PV. When we're looking for the payments, future value has to be 0 every time you exception, because we have multiple steps in the same question. Right? So so far we have everything to find the payment. So let's do this. Let's start with your NPEPMs. Let's find the payment and then move on to the next step, and then we can talk about everything else. So 19.5, 2 and 12, and then we can cross off PYR. So let's start with the NPEPM. Let's do 19.5 shift nom, 2 shift PYR shift effective, 12 shift PYR shift nom. How much did you get? I have to redo it. Okay. Did you get 18.75, 19? Right? Nice and close, not too far. Cross off your PYR because you know PYR will be 12 right now. And you already have that 18.75 sits in here. And it's 20 years, so do 20 shift N. Will come up as 240 months. Next one, present value 1 and 2,000. PV. Skip the payments. Future value, don't forget, 0 plus minus future value. And now you press the PMT. When you press the PMT, it should come up as a negative number. What did you get? 1,633.44. Okay, that's your payment. That's what you got right now. Now, what do they ask you about the payments? They say absolutely nothing. All they say is just the monthly payment. So if they say nothing, how do you finish step number 1? You still have to take that payment and you have to bump it up to the next higher cent. So manually, don't skip this step because nothing else will work for you. You're going to take this payment and you're going to increase it to the next highest cent. So on top of your screen right now, you're going to do 1633.45, and then you're going to press plus minus and then press PMT. So let's do this right now. So 1633.45 plus minus PMT. It should come up negative, and it should come up with that next higher cent. Step number 1 is finished. Step number 2, what are we looking for? We're looking to see what we have on the timeline that is different from the amortization. Do we have the term in this question? And they say 5 years term that is given to us. So if you like those little boxes like Melanie shows you in the videos, welcome to use them. So amortization is the first thing we use to find the payments. So 20 years amortization. Okay. Term is in this question is 5 years. 5 years term. And then at some point, you will see the ago that will show up. So you do it in the same sequence. You're going to do first amortization, then the term. And then if you have the ago, which I'll show you, then you'll do it as the last step. So in this question, we have a 5 years term. So what does that mean? That means we're going to plug it into the timeline. So you're going to do 5 shift N. It will come up as 60 months, and then you would press future value, and that future value will come up as a negative number. So let's do this together. So 5 shift N. It should come up as 60 months. Future value, press it, just press it, and it will come up as a negative 98,115.82. Right, that's your future value. How do you know if you've done a good job? Your outstanding balance should be lower than your present value because you paid some money for 5 years. Right, so as long as it's low, as long as it's negative, that means you did great. So step 2 is finished after you put your nuggets and fries. Step number 3, what do we have in here? This is your market rate. That's your second J that you have to work with. And in this question, if you go to the bank, they actually give you a better rate than that developer. It's at 18%. So right now, let's do the conversion. So we're going to do the second in Pepin. 18, 2, and 12. It should come up to 17 point something. Let's do it together. So 18 shift nom, 2 shift PYR shift effective, 12 shift PYR shift nom, 17.3599. Okay, so we got the conversion. Step 3 is finished. What do you do after this? Step number 4 is the best step. This is when you press your present value to see how much is this mortgage going to cost you. And you see that developer is making money of you. So now when you press PV, it'll come up as 106,661.85. Do you see that? Because you charge a higher rate than the bank, you make more money of you. And they're looking for the offer. So what does that mean, the offer? So what is this PV? That's your market value of a mortgage. So that's just the mortgage. That's how much developer makes on you on the mortgage itself. But we're not that in the question because they still want the offer. If they want the offer, that means you need to have somewhat cash. So what's the cash? Do we have a cash in the question? We have the unit price that is 130 and the mortgage loan is 102. So if you wanted to buy that unit and the developer said, look, come to me, my unit costs 130,000, I'll give you a mortgage of 102,000, okay? And the rest, whatever comes up in here, that's going to be your cash amount that you have to come up with. So how much does it come up to? 28,000 cash. So you see how they hide that cash sometimes in the question? They do it quite often. Put a star next to this question. This is the question they like on the exam quite often when they give you a developer and they hide the cash away. So that 28,000, did you get how I got it? Unit price minus the mortgage, that's how much you need to add to the transaction. So now what do you do? There's 106,661, which is a mortgage. Add the cash to this. So do regular plus. Cash is 28,000 plus regular equals. So the offer that the developer wants from you is 134,661.85. Okay? So it should be the option number 1. Is this one. So you see, you don't have to really think too much in the question. Just pull up the numbers, put them in the right places, and be done with this question. Let's do the next one. Question number 4. An offer of 235,000 is accepted. Compromise of the cash down payment of 55,000. Supply mortgage of 180,000 at 14% compounded semi-annually. So we have the first J that's given to you, 14%. Then this is the loan will be amortized for 25 years, 5 years term, monthly payments, and then they tell you that the current market rates for the mortgages will be 19%. Do you see that? So you scan the question, you see there's 2 rates. You know it's going to be a pimple question. Next thing what we're looking for, we're looking to see what they want, and they want the market value of an offer. So if it's an offer, that means you need to have the cash. So what I would do straight up, by looking at the question, I'll find the cash in the question, and I can see the cash is 55,000 right there, right? And what I will do, I will put it straight up at the bottom, so I don't forget about that cash. That's what I'm going to do. So 55,000 cash, and at the end, when I find the PV, I'll add the cash. That will give you my market value of an offer. By now, you should start liking these questions, okay? Because you see how they all matching the steps. They all the same formula, pretty much, right? So let's find the step number 1. Let's find the payment. My first question, what would you use for the J? You always use the first rate that's given to you, which is 14%. So let's put that 14 in here. Compounded semi-annually. Payments will be monthly for 25 years amortization, okay? And 5 years term. So if I want to fill up those boxes, I also can do that. So we have 25 years amortization with a 5 years term. So I also put my 5 into step number 2 because I know that's what I will be using that for. Okay, so let's start with step number 1. We're going to find the payment first. So that means we have to plug in all the other information in here. So what do we have so far? We have N. We still need the present value. So what would that be in this question? Is that a 235 or is that a mortgage loan of 180? It's always a mortgage. So 180,000. So 180,000 will be your PV. Future value, what would you do? If we're looking for the payments, future value has to be, good job, 0 plus minus. And when we do the in Pepin, then you can cross off your IYR, PYR. Okay, so we set. Let's do this now. Okay, let's do the in Pepin first. Let's do the conversion. Should be nice and close to 14, so it should be 13 point something. You guys ready? Okay, let's do it together. So 14 shift nom, 2 shift PYR shift effective, 12 shift PYR shift nom. Did you get 1360.83? Okay, nice and close. So that's done. That's when we cross off your IYR, PYR. Okay, we know that everything will be now monthly. And 25 years, so do 25 shift, and it will come up as 300 months. PV is 180,000. PV. Don't skip the future value. Make sure you put that 0 plus minus future value, and now you press the payment. Your payment should come up to negative 2,112.97. Let me know if you get the same. So 2,112,097. If they said nothing, what would you do? Then you would take that payment and you would increase it to the next higher cent. But in this question, they said that one payment is to be rounded up to the next higher dollar. So finish step 1. When I say finish it, I expect you to round it up manually and plug it back in. So next higher cent will be, next higher dollar will be 13. So 21.13 should be your payment. So 21.13 plus minus PMT. So let's plug that in. So 211 3 plus minus BMT. So step 1 is finished when you plug that in when it's negative on your screen. If it's not negative, if it's not increased, nothing will work for you. Step number 2. Step number 2, this is what we're looking for, that term to see, do we have a term? And yes, we do. It's 5 years. Then what do? You do nuggets and fries. So what do? 5. Shift N will come up as 60 months. Then you press your future value, and that future value should come up as a negative number. So let's do this together. So 5 shift N. Did you get 60? Press future value. How do you know if you've done a good job? It's negative and it's lower than your present value. So mine came up as 173,880. 54. Okay, so that's good. Step number 2 is finished. Don't round it up. Don't do nothing with this. Keep it as is. Step number 3 is your second market rate. So let's see what we have in here. The second rate is 19 compounded semi-annually. It's crazy. So 19 compounded semi-annually. Payments are still monthly, same as the first one. So 19, 2, and 12. So let's do the second pattern right now. Let's see how much it comes up to. Should be nice and close to 18 point something. Ready? 19 shift nom. 2 shift PYR shift effective. 12 shift PYR shift nom. 18.2888. Okay, that's done. And then what do? Now we press the step number 4, which is press PV, not future value, PIMP. So press PV. It should come up to 152,861.20. Okay, so did you get this? What's this? That is your market value of a mortgage. Are we done? No, they're looking for the offer. Make sure that you add the cash. So 152,000 is on your screen right now. Just press regular plus. 55,000 regular equals. What did you get? 207, right? 207,861.20. Okay, so if I look back at the answers, 207,861.21. Don't worry about the penny. You get the answer. That's all that matters. Do you like the pimps? So by now you should like them or love them. I expect love from the pimps. You know, they treat us really well. Let's go for the next one. Question number 5. Susan Jones has offered to purchase the house from the vendor who is willing to provide a partial financing. So her offer was $75,000 down payment, which is cash, and the mortgage of $125 at 14 compounded semi-annually. So that's the first rate so far. The loan has to be fully amortized with the monthly payments over 20 years. So what is the market value of an offer? Looking for the offer. If the current market rates will be at 22.5%. So we have the 2 rates in the question. We know that we're looking for the PIMPO. We're looking for the offer. That means you must add the cash at the end. And all of the answers are in money. Okay, so let's start with the question. We're going to work step by step. Step 1 is to find the payment. So what would be your J in here? Which one do you use? Of course, you use the first one that's given to you, which is 14% compounded semi-annually. Payments on monthly. Okay, and then the second J, I'll just put it straight up in here so you can see that compounded semi-annually too. So J2, 22.5. Okay, so I'll just put it here so you can see that that's what we're going to be using. Next one, your PV is your mortgage. So which one is that? Mortgage is 125,000. So keep it simple. Okay, future value will be 0 because if we're looking for the payments, future value has to be 0. And the N is for how long to give us the money for. They say it's, let me just show you something. It says mortgage will be fully amortized for 20 years. You know what fully amortized means? What it stands for? You see, in British Columbia, you will never have a fully amortized mortgage. So what is that? So this is when you come to the bank, just to show you, and they say, we'll give you that money, okay, for 20 years, and we'll fix that 14% all the way for 20 years. Have you ever went to the bank and get fully amortized mortgages? Never. This is United States mortgages. We don't have that in Canada. So in Canada, we always have the term that is different from the amortization. But when they give you those questions, they say it's fully amortized. What it means, that means that rate is going to be all the way for 20 years. And my question to you, if the term and amortization is the same number, what would you do in step number 2? What do? You do nothing. You skip it. And why do we skip the step number 2? Because you would consider that, like, you see how the line is nice and clean, there's nothing on it? That's it. So that means there's nothing for you to do in here. Okay? So if you have a fully amortized mortgage, that means there's no term. Or a term will be the same as the amortization. That means nothing to do in step number 2. Right? So 20 years amortization. So I'll just put that into my N. 20 years in. It will come up as 240 months. And on the right side, I can fill that up too if I wanted to. There's nothing else that's given to me. So that's it. So we have enough information. So let's start with your and Pepin's. Let's put that 14% in. J2 and 12, it will come up nice and close to 13 point something. Okay, so 14 shift nom, 2 shift PYR shift effective, 12 shift PYR shift nom, 1360.83. Okay, nice and close, not too far. What do you do after this? You're going to cross off your IYR PYR. Okay, you know that everything will be monthly, and that's 13.60 sits in here. And 20 years, so do 20 shift N, will come up at 240 months. PV, 125,000. PV, skip the payments, future value, don't forget 0 plus minus future value. And only then you press PMT. When you press the payments, how much did you get in here? It should be negative 1,518.96. Right, that's your payment. And if, what do they say about the payments in here? Do they want us to round it up to anything? No, they just say monthly payments over 20 years. So there's nothing talks about the payments. So your job is to take that payment and bump it up to the next higher cent. I brainwashed you enough, right? So we're going to do finish step number 1. On top of your old payment, you're going to put 15, 18, okay, 0.97 plus minus BMT. Okay, plug it back in, make sure it's negative. 15, 18, 0.97 plus minus BMT. Step 1 is done. Step number 2, we skip it. Why? Because it's fully amortized and you have no term in here. Step number 3 is your market rate, which is your second J. What do we have in here? It's 22.5%. So let's do the second and Pepin right now. Okay, so 22.5, 2 and 12 should be nice and close to that 22.5. So 22.5 shift nom, 2 shift PYR shift effective, 12 shift PYR shift nom. Did you get 21.5125? Okay, good job. Nice and close, not too far. Step 3 is finished. Step number 4, you press your PV. So press PV, it should be a positive number and it should be lower than your, actually it doesn't have to be, but in this case, yes, lower 83,539.10. Okay, so that's your PV. Holy, that's a huge difference, right? So the seller thought he's pocketing 125, but he's only getting 83,000. Why? Because the banks, the current bank rate is 22%, and he's only giving 14, so he's definitely putting less money in his pocket, right? And then what are they looking for? They're looking for the offer. And if it's an offer, we need to have some cash in here. So what do we have? 75,000. 75,000 is the cash. So on top of your 83,000, you plus 75,000, and then press equals and see what happens. Those questions are really good. We like pimps. We want to have more pimps on the exams. Okay, perfect. So this is what I got in here. 158,539. Look back at the answers, and we have it as option number 4, 158,539. Okay, let's do more. Of course we do. You like this. Question number 6. An appraiser has located the comparable where the sale price is 220,000, comprised of 105 cash and 115 is the value take-back mortgage. 3.5%. That's the first rate that I see in here. Compounded semi-annually with the monthly payments, fully amortized. So I already know that there's nothing for you to do in step number 2. And then we have the second rate of 5%. So what are they looking for? You see, in this question, this is where it gets tougher. You look at it as it's definitely a PIMP question, but I want to know if I'm looking for the PIMPO or am I looking for PIMP? Do I have to add the cash in here? So this is how you know it. Highlight this keyword and put a star next to this question. This is the question that they like to give you an exam quite often. I'll be honest, right? This is a very common question. They like this question. And the reason that they like this question is because of this. You see, if I look at the question here, it says, what should the appraiser regard as the sale price of the house? They don't tell you. They don't say, we're looking for the market value of an offer. They say nothing. So how do you know if it's an offer? Think of it this way. If you were the appraiser and you want to go check it out the property value, would you just look at the mortgage value itself, or would you look at the full picture? Of course, you're going to assess everything. So when you see the word an appraiser, then think of it as an offer. So if that's easy for you, just put on top of that appraiser, put the word offer, right? So you know that they're looking for the offer when the question is referring to the appraiser. Okay, keep it simple. So we have the 2 rates in here. We know we're looking for the offer, all the money in the answers in here. So let's start with step number 1. Let's find the payment. What is your J? What are you going to use in here? You use the first one, 3.5%. Good job. Compounded semi-annually. Payments in this question are monthly. So that means we're going to be using the monthly payments in the second one too. Okay. N is for how long they give you the money for. So they say they'll give you the money for fully amortized over 20 years. So what does that mean, fully amortized? So that means you have no term in this question, and you will be paying those 3.5% all the way for 25 years. So that means step number 2, we can just skip it. The point, right? So we can just cross it off. Next one, PV, what would you use in here? You don't use the cash. Cash goes right at the end. So if they're looking for the offer, I'll take this 105 and I'll put it straight at the end. Okay, I'll put it right here in step number 5 so I don't forget it. But the mortgage is what I want. So the mortgage is 115,000. So that is my present value. So 115,000 PV, 0 plus minus future value, because when you're looking for the payments, future value always has to be 0. Good job. And now we have enough information. So let's start with your NPEPN. Let's do the conversion. 3.5, 2 and 12. It should come up nice and close to 3. So let's do that right now. So 3.5 shift nom. 2 shift PYR shift effective. 12 shift PYR shift nom. Did you get 3.4747? Okay, good job. Then when we do cross off your IYR PYR. So that's done. Now you know everything is monthly on this side because your PYR last PYR is 12. N, 20 years, so you do 20 shift N. It will come up as 240 months. 150,000, 15,000 PV. Skip the payments, 0 plus minus future value. Don't forget this one. And only after that you press your PMT. Payment came up to negative 665.46. Let's see what they want. Do they tell us anything about the payments? No. They say payments with monthly payments and that's it. But at the end here, they say that they want the answers to be to the nearest 100. So let me just say something. Payments can never be nearest. Payments always goes up. If somebody will increase the payments, it always goes up. When they're referring to the nearest, it's always the answer. So the answer can go up and down, right, to whatever they want to round it up, but not the payment. Payment only goes up. So if they say nothing, then what do you do? It means you take that payment and you're going to bump it up to the next higher cent. So on top of your old payments, what are you going to do? You're going to put 665.47 plus minus PMT. So let's finish the step number 1. Let's plug it in. 665.47 plus minus PMT. Step 1 is done. Step number 2, nothing. Why? Because it says fully amortized. Fully amortized mortgage. That means there's no term in here. Okay. Step number 3, that's your second NPEPN. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to do the second NPEPN. So 5, 2, and 12 will come up as 4 point something. Let's do it together. So 5 shift nom, 2 shift PYR shift effective, 12 shift PYR shift nom, 4.9486. Right? You've done that. Step 3 is finished. Step number 4, what do? You press your present value to see how much is this mortgage going to be worth. Okay. 3.55, that means it's going to be worth less than this. So press PV. Mine came up to 101,269.92. Okay. So what's this? That is your mortgage. Is that what we're looking for? We're not looking for mortgage. We're looking for the offer because they're referring to the appraiser and he wants to know the sale price of the property. So what do? You add those two numbers together. So plus, cash is 105,000. Press equals, and you should get 206,269.92. Okay. So if I look back at the answers, they're looking to bump it up or bring it down because they want it to the nearest 100. So what happens here? Nothing closer to 206 as you look at it, right? So you know the closest one that we have is 300 in here. They will never trick you on those at the end. That's always the easy part. Okay, that's it. Let's go for the next one. Question number 7. Now, did I make you feel comfortable by now? And you see a lot of people say, you know what, I actually like the pimps now. Put the star next to this question. There's something new that comes up right now that you might not like me as much right now, but trust me, you're still going to like it. So this is something that I want you to put a star next to because they like this question in the exam. So now we have something new. You remember how we have this little box in here? We have the A, which is the amortization, the T is the term, and then we have the ago. So now I have to explain you what this ago stands for. Okay. So somebody bought a house 3 years ago. Okay, somebody bought a house. So Jim bought a house 3 years ago. At that time, he got a mortgage of $120,000. Loan was given to you at 9.75 compounded semi-annually with a 25 years amortization and monthly payments. He received an offer from Alice to buy his house, and Alice offered him $25,000 cash. And she wants to, what does she want to do? She wants to assume his mortgage. So this is what's happening here. So when you see that 3 years ago, whatever that ago thing, that means somebody bought a house, they lived there for 3 years, and now they want to sell it. And that new person comes in and says, look, I want to keep your rate. Whatever the rate you fix in there, I'll just assume the balance of it. I'll take over your mortgage, basically. Okay? This is where it gets a bit different, and this is why I want you to pay attention to, because we'll have to do extra steps on step number 2. That's the only difference. We have to do something extra in here. Current lending rate of 2 years mortgage terms will be 11.75, compounded semi-annually. What is the market value of an offer? So you're looking for the market value of an offer. You see that we have 2 rates in the question. We have 9.75 and 11.75, so you know that is a PIMPO question. So let's set up things. Let's work in step number 1, which is always the same. It's not going to change on you. We're going to pull up the J. You're going to use the first one, so 9.75, compounded semi-annually. Payments are monthly. Second rate, I'll just put it in so we have it, 11.75, J2, payments monthly. Okay, so I just put them in here for now. What else do we need? We need to know your N and your present value. The N is given to you for 25 years amortization. So 25 shift N. And I'll put that 25 years on that side for you so you can see that. Then we have the term in this question, and the term is given to us for, let me see, okay, right there. It says with a 5 years term. So we have a 5 years term in here, okay? So the term, I will put it into our little box in here, and I'm also going to add it into step number 2. So you see, so far, nothing has been changed. The only thing that will change in here is that ago. And this ago, for now, I will just put it right here because we've never used that before, but that's a new thing for you. So I'll just highlight it too so we don't forget about it, okay? So let's work in step number 1 because we only have something new that comes up in step number 2, but step 1 is all the same. Present value, what would you put in here? Mortgage is $120,000, so it's pretty straightforward. So we'll just use that, $120,000. Future value, 0, good job. It always has to be 0. And we'll find the payment right now. So let's pull up your J's. Let's see how much it comes up to. 9.75, 2, and 12. Okay, you guys ready? 9.75, shift nom. 2 shift PYR, shift effective. 12 shift PYR, shift nom. 9.5576. Okay, we've done the impairments, cross off your IYR, PYR. N is for 25 years. So let's move on to this side. So 25 shift N. You should get 300 months. 120,000 PV. Skip the payments. Future value 0 plus minus future value. Don't forget. And now you press the payment. My payment came up to negative 1,053.24. Did you get the same payment? 753.24? Good job. So payments, they said nothing about the payments, all they say just monthly. So your job is to take that payment and bump it up to the next higher cent. So from 24, you're going to increase it to the 25. So you're going to do 1053.25 plus minus PMT. So let's plug it in. So 1053.25 plus minus PMT. Negative, all these years came up in the end, that's highest cent, so step number 1 is done. So now let's work on step number 2, because step number 2 is where we have something that is new. And I'll show you visually, I'm going to draw the line for you just to show you what happens in here. So she got the money for 25 years amortization, okay? Or Jim got a house and he put it for 25 years amortization. At that time, Jim fixed the mortgage for 5 years. So he put a mortgage in the property and he said, I'll have that rate of 9.75 fixed all the way for 5 years in here, okay? And after the 3 years, he decides to sell the mortgage. Okay, he lived here for 3 years, but then he decides to sell it to Alice. And if Alice wants to keep this rate, how many years does she have left? And this is what's happening here. So on the line, if you have the term and if you have the ago, the rule is you always do the term first, like we always do. Because term is an expensive date. It has the nuggets and the fries. You go to McDonald's, you get the whole combo of things. So we're going to start with the term first, because if you had to choose a date, you choose the expensive date first before you choose the cheap one. So you're going to do 5 shift N. We'll do that first. We'll come up with 61. Then you're going to press your future value, and it should come up lower than present value. So let's do the term first. You guys ready? So 5 shift N. You should see it as 60 months. Press future value. It should come up negative 112,538.70. Okay, so far so good. So this is what we always did, right? Every single question that we had a term, we would do the same thing, nuggets and fries. And now you'll come back to Alice's, look, if I was Alice and I had to assume his mortgage, what am I assuming? I'm assuming is what's left. I'm not taking the 3 years because it's already been paid for. I'm assuming this balance in between, right? So basically, this is what we do. We take the term minus the ago. Is the 5 minus 3, and that gives you that 2 years that's left on the term in here, and that's the one that she will do the assumption on. So she's only taking the 2 years. Now look at the question. A lot of times they'll help you with this. They say if the current lending rates for the 2-year term mortgages will be that. So sometimes they'll add that 2 in here for you just to hopefully help you, not to confuse you. But it's your job to understand that the go number itself, you don't touch. Okay? It's been paid. It has nothing to do with you. She's assuming his mortgage. She has 2 years left. So you need to put that 2 into your calculator as a step number 2. So we've done, let me just go back. You've done on the timeline, first you've done your nuggets and fries. Then you're going to do this assumption thing. You do 5 minus 3, that gives you 2. So you're going to do 2, and then you do shift N, and that's all you do. So if the term gives you 2 steps, nuggets and fries, so you do 5 shift N plus future value. When it comes to a go, you only do 1 step. A go is a cheap date, right? He only buys you nuggets, and that's all he does. That's all he has money for. So you went for the expensive date, now you come back to the cheap date, and you're just getting the nuggets right now. So you press 2 shift N. So let's do this right now. Press 2 shift N. It will come up as 24 months. Do you see that 24 come up on your screen? Good. So 24 months is what's left for her. Now my question, don't do it now, but would you press future value now? A go doesn't have the fries. It's not a combo anymore. Okay, with the go, you just put that 2 into the calculator and you stop. What if you press future value by mistake? Then what do? Then you start from the beginning. You do 5 shift N, press future value, find the outstanding balance after 5 years, and then come back and do 2 shift N. When you see the 24 on your screen, you stop. And that's all you do in step number 2. I'm going to give you more examples on this timeline. I'm just going to show you different options over and over so you understand it, but let's just finish this question. So step 2 is finished after you have the 24 on your screen. Step number 3, what do? You do your second market rate. Okay, so let's finish it. Market rate is 11.75 semi-annually, converted to monthly. Let's do this together. So 11.75 shift nom, 2 shift PYR shift effective, 12 shift PYR shift nom. Did you get 11.47? 22. Good job. So step number 3 is finished. Step 4, it's the same. You press your present value, 112,055.08. Okay, that's your mortgage. Okay, it is lower because the rate is different. And then they're looking for the offer. So if it's an offer, you must have the cash. And her offer provides you with cash of how much? Of 25,000. So you're going to do plus 25,000 and press equals. So this 112,000 plus the cash. So plus 25,000 press equals will come up to 137,055.08. Okay. 137,055.09. It's all good. We've finished this question. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to give you more scenarios just on the timeline, just to kind of get you used to different stuff. And then we're going to move on to the next question. So let's say that you have a question. We're just working on step number 2, right? The timeline. So let's say in the question, they say there's a 10 years amortization with a 2 years term. Then what do? I know it's easy. You do 2 shift N, right? And then you press the future value. That's it, right? That's what we do. If I say 5 years term, then what do? You do 5 shift N, then you press your future value. So it's always the same stuff, right? That's all you would do in a line. Now, what if I say that it's 5 years term? Let's change it up a little bit. Okay. So I'll say it's a 5 years term and 2 years ago. Then what would you do then? You always start with the term first. So the first thing you're going to put up to the timeline, you're going to do 5, shift N, you'll press the future value. So far, so good, right? And then what do you do now? Now, if it's an assumption of the mortgage, if it's in a go, that means you're going to take the term minus the go and see what's left for you if you're taking over the mortgage. So 5 minus 2 gives you 3 years. Okay, that's your step number 2. So then what do? You do 3, shift N, because there's 3 years left in here, right? You assuming this. 5 minus 2 is 3 years left. So you do 3 shift N, and you don't press the future value. If you press it by mistake, then come back and just redo from step 1 and 2, right? So do all of it. Next one. What if I say that I'll give you, let me just come up with the story. Let's say they give you money for 25 years amortization and the term with 1 year ago. Oh, wow, I really changed it, okay? Now, what do we do? So if I say 25 years term and amortization, so if the term and amortization is the same number, what does that mean? That means it's fully amortized. So that means you don't do the nuggets and fries. You get the point? So you don't do this, okay? You don't do this. The point you don't do this because it's fully amortized. So the only thing we have to work on is the ago. And if you want to assume that mortgage, how many years left for you? Somebody paid for 1 year and you still have 25 minus 1 gives you 24 years left. So all you do in this one, you'll do nothing here, but you do 24 shift and that's it. Good job. Next one. What if I say it's a 25 years amortization? It's a 25 years amortization and it has 6 years term and 2 years ago. Then what would you do? What would you do? So 6 years term and 2 years ago. Okay. You start with your term first. So then what do? You do 6 shift N. Okay, that makes sense? 6 shift N, then you press future value. And then what are you doing here? You say, okay, so 6 minus 2 gives me 4 years, so I do 4 shift N. Okay? Is that starting to make sense to you? Good. So the timeline, it all depends which way. If both of them are given to you, make sure that you start with the term first. Do the nuggets and fries. And then if the go is given to you, don't use this number. It's this minus this that gives you that assumption of what's left in there. Let's do just one more example, and that's it. I'll do the 10 years amortization. Let me just take that off. Okay, so 10 years amortization. and the term, and 2 years ago. Okay, what would you do? If it's amortization in term, that means there's nothing for you to do here, right? No nuggets and fries. But if it's 2 years ago, that means you're assuming whatever is left, which is how many years? 8 years. So what are you going to put on the line? You're only going to do 8 shift and that's it. Good. Okay, so let's go back to the questions then. Let's do the question number 8. Now, this question also has a 3 years ago. Do you see that? So that's already the ago. That we know that we're going to be using that on the timeline for sure. So I put that 3 into the ago in there. He bought a house when he got a mortgage of 120,000. So I'm just going to start filling up as we go through the question. So 120,000 PV, and the rate was at 6.75%. So we see that these two rates in the same question. So we know it's going to be a PIMPO question. They're looking for the offer, so that is a PIMPO. But I'll use the first rate to plug it in to find the payment. So 6.75 compounded semi-annually. It says that call for the monthly payments of H22.06. Now, usually we don't use their payments. Why we don't use it? Because we can find our own payments and then match it up to what they want. But let's see if we have enough information to find our own payments. How do we know that? I need to have my N, I need to have my PV, and zero future value to find the payment. So I need to see if I have the N in this question. And of course, I need to have my J to find the payment too. So if you have the J and if you have the N, you can find your payment. That's not a problem. So let's see what we have in here. So monthly payments of H22, so, and the outstanding balance off. Now, this one, please watch out for, okay? That's, put the star next to this question. Why did I like this question so much? Because they give you that extra information. And outstanding balance off, what is this? This is your nuggets and fries. So when you press that future value in step number 2, this is when you find that outstanding balance, right? But when we're looking for the payments, would you put that outstanding balance into the future value? You put a 0, because when we have multiple steps, when you're looking for the payments, future value has to be 0. You see how that works for you now? So make sure that you always stay consistent. So 0 plus minus, and the outstanding balance, when we do the nuggets and fries, it should match up to what's given to us. So don't use that number. We're just going to look for that future value and see if it matches it. That's all we have to do. This is a 5 years term, so I know the term is given to us too. Okay, so I'll put the 5 in here for now. 5 years term. That's good. And what else do we have in here? Jim has received an offer from Alice to buy his house. She gives him a cash of 25,000. So if it's an offer, I'll put that 25,000 right at the bottom, straight up, into step number 5, so plus 25,000. And the assumption of the existing financing for the remainder of the term. So the current rate for the 2 years term mortgages will be 8.75, compounded semi-annually. What's the market value of an offer? So we're looking for the offer, right? So that's why we put the cash in here. The second rate will go in here. So do we have the N in this question? It's not given to you. You can try to put the 5 in here. It's up to you, because that's the only thing we have. You'll find a huge payment because it's not the term that determines the payments. But if you put 5, the payment will come up as a high number. And what you can do with that payment, you can just change it to what they want after. You can just override it. And then you're going to be fine. No problem. But if we have the payment that's given to us, so I'll put that H22.06. Okay, that's given to us. Then instead of finding the payments, we can just press the N, and it's still going to show us the right numbers. So in this case, if the N is not given to you, you have two options. Option 1, you put 5 in here, find the payment. Payment will be a big number. It's not going to be this. Change that payment to H22.06. Okay, you can do that, no problem. You're going to be perfect on the dot. It's nothing going to change. It's going to be good. Or in this case, I'm just going to put that payment in here. I'll pretend I'm looking for that payment, but I'll find the N instead. So let's do the impairment first. I'll show you what I mean by this. So you're going to do 6.75, 2 and 12. Let's do it together. So 6.75 shift norm, 2 shift PYR shift effective, 12 shift PYR shift norm, 6.6569. Okay, so the impairment is done. I like PYR, I cross it off. I don't have the N in this question, so I'll just keep it for now. I'll put 120,000 PV. I'll put the payment in because it's given to me, H22.06 as is, plus minus PMT, it's already increased. And then you can put 0 plus minus future value. And now we're going to press the N, right? That's the only option we have. So you press the N, it will come up as 299. So basically 300 months, okay? So the N is in as 299. I'll just put it here like this, 299.99. Which is 300 months. Okay, so we'll just keep it as is. So this is what you could have done as a step number 1. Or if you just want to watch me, don't copy me, just watch me. This is what you could have done too. You could have put the 5 into the N. Okay, so let's pretend I've done the impairment. I'm going to do 5 shift N. Will come up as 60 months. Just to show you, 120,000 was PV, 0 plus minus future value. And if I press the payment, my payment comes up as negative 2356.77. I could have done that, find this payment, and then change the payment to what they want, which is H22. Okay, so what I would do on top of this payment, I would just press 822.06 plus minus BMT, and that's it. And it's still going to be exactly the same as what I showed you in the first place. So find which way you like best. I personally sometimes like to find my own payment and then just change it to what you want and be done with it. Right? So this way I don't have to think twice. So step 1 is finished the way you like it to. So I just left the old version of it, right? So the second version of it. So I changed my payment from this to this. I manually put H22.06 plus minus BMT. Step 1 is done. Step number 2. This is what we're going to do the term, and then we're going to do the ago. We're going to do 2 things on this timeline. First, you're going to start with the term. So if that's given to you, you use this first. So you're going to do 5 shift N. You're going to do 5 shift N. It will come up at 60 months. And then you're going to press the future value, and the future value will come up lower than this. Lower than this. So let's do it together. So do 5 shift N. Come up at 60 months. Future value come up as a negative 108,904.48. Right? So that's what we got in here. It's lower than that. That's perfect. And we're not finished with the timeline because we still have that 3 years ago. In the question, they even help you out and say, these are 2 years term mortgages, the rate will be this much. So what do we do? So if you have that 3 years ago in here, Okay? Somebody paid for 3 years for that mortgage, and if you assume in the mortgage, what is left for you down there? You have only 2 years left. So if it's a 5 year term, and 3 years ago, you said 5 minus 3 gives me 2 years that is left for me with that rate if I'm going to assume the mortgage. So when you do this at go, don't use the 3 as the next step. So you want to make sure that you do the term first, and then you do what's left, which is 2 years. So you do 2, and then you do shift N. 2 shift N, and they should come up as 24 months on your screen. So after you have this outstanding balance on your screen of 108,000, if you have that, let's do the second step. So do 2 shift N. When you say 2 shift N, 24 comes up. Don't touch it after. So this is done. There's nothing else. Don't press the future value. If you press the future value by mistake, how do you fix it? Come back, do 5 shift N, press future value, and then do 2 shift N. So I go with a cheap date. There's only one step. Only nuggets that's given to you. Okay? Step 2 is finished. Step number 3 is your market rate. So that means the second J. Here we have 8.75 that's given to you. So 8.75 compounded semi-annually. Payments are still monthly because they're not going to change. So let's do the second and pattern. So 8.75 shift norm, 2 shift PYR shift effective, 12 shift PYR shift norm. It should come up with 8.5946. Okay, nice and close, not too far. So you've done the pattern. Okay, that's your step number 3. Step number 4, you press your PV. So press PV. Just press it and see what happens. It will come up as 109,829.01. Okay, did you get that? 109,000. That's 9. And then this is your mortgage. They're looking for the offer. So if it's an offer, you need to add the cash. So do regular plus 25,000 plus regular equals. Mine came up to 134,829.01. Let's look back at the answers. 134,829.02. Perfect. So we're good. And we can go for the next question. Okay. Question number 9. 2 years ago, let's highlight that because we don't like the goes. And I'll put the go into our box in there. Emma bought a beautiful lakefront estate for $750,000, and she made a purchase with $250,000 down payment and financed the remainder. So what is her mortgage? Let me just ask you this. She bought a house for $750,000. Out of that $750,000, $250,000 was the cash. That means her mortgage was $500,000. Okay, so we'll get there. Payments, what do we have here? Mortgage written at the rate of J 12.5. So that's the first J that's given to us. We'll use that as a first J. 12.5 compounded semi-annually. 20 years amortization with the monthly payments. And a 5 years term. So we have the term in this question that's given to us too. So I'll put that 5 in here too, and 5 in there in that box. 20 years amortization. Perfect. So what else is she doing here? She now wants to sell the property to Ernie, who made an offer of $240,000 down payment and the assumption of the mortgage. So he wants to assume her mortgage, right? The assumption of it. If the current market rates for the similar mortgages will be J4 equals 10. So that's your second J. So we do have the 2 J's in the question. I'll put the J4 equals 10 in here too with monthly payments. So we have them both. We'll use the first one to find the payment. And when we're looking for the payments, my question is always the same. What is the present value? Present value has to be a mortgage. So is that a 750, 250, 240? Which one do you use? It cannot be cash. So it cannot be 250, it cannot be 240. 750 is what she paid for. So if she paid the 750, out of that 750, 250 was her cash. Okay, so how much is the mortgage? Is the 500,000, right? Do you see that? So that 500,000 is the present value. That's the one you're going to be using, not the 750, not 250, right? 500,000. So you see how sometimes they hide stuff inside of the question. On the exam, our students usually don't see that complicated, but just in case, we teach you that. So 500,000 is the PV. Future value is 0, plus minus, and we have enough information to find the payment. So let's start with your NPEPN. 12.5, 2, and 12. Let's do it together. So 12.5 shift norm, 2 shift PYR shift effective, 12 shift PYR shift norm. It comes up as 12.1863. Nice and close. Cross off your IYR PYR. Let's do the end. You do 20 shift and it will come up as 240 months. Mortgage, 500,000. PV, 0 plus minus future value. Payment came up to negative 5,570.53. And if they say nothing about the payments, then you would increase it to the next higher cent. So monthly payments, I don't say nothing about the increase of the payments. So that means you will manually increase it to the next highest cent, which is 54. So on top of your screen, you're going to add the new payment in. 70.54 plus minus PMT. I'm just going to put that in. So let's do together 70.54 plus minus PMT. Step 1 is done. Step number 2, what do we have? We have quite a lot of stuff going on in here. We use the 20 years to find the payments. Term is the next thing we have to do. So we have to do the 5 years. So let's do this as a first thing. You're going to do 5 shift N will come up as 60 months. Press future value should come up negative. Let's do it together. So 5 shift N, 60. Press future value, negative 459,545. Did you get that? It's lower than the present value and it's negative, so that means we're doing a good job. And then we're not done here yet. We still have to do the ago. So somebody bought a house 2 years ago now. So if it's 2 years ago, that means there's an assumption going on in here. Somebody paid for 2 years, and they paid for 2 years, and now you're assuming what's left. So what do? You take the term minus the ago. So 5 minus 2, and that gives you that 3 years. So 3 years left. And then what do you do with that 3 years? You do 3 shift N, and it will come up as 36. And that's it. So 3 shift N. So chip date, right? Ago. Don't use the 2. 2 is what just shows you what's being paid. So do 3 shift N. You'll see that 36 and then you stop. Don't do nothing else. So step number 2 is finished when you see that 36. Next one. Step number 3 is your market rate, so the second impediment. And right now we have it as a J4 equals 10. Don't mess it up. Don't mess it up because you guys are so used to the J2 right now that sometimes you put the 2 in everything. Okay, so let's do it together. So 10 shift norm, 4 shift PYR shift effective, 12 shift PYR shift norm. You should get 9.9178. If you didn't get it, that means you probably put 2 in here. So 10 shift norm, 4 shift PYR shift effective, 12 shift PYR shift norm. Step number 3 is finished. Step number 4, you press your present value, PV, and you should get 514,542.05. Now, what is this? This is a market value of a mortgage. So if they were looking for the mortgage, then you would be done. But what are they looking for? They say, what is the earnings offer? Do you see this? They're looking for the offer. If it's an offer, that means you need to add cash. Now, let's look at the question. In this question, we have 2 cash. We have a cash that she, as the vendor, she bought a house with 250, and now earning comes, and earning means an offer of 240,000 down payment. So which cash do we use in here? Ask yourself a question, who is buying the house? If Ernie is the one who's putting an offer, that means you're going to be using Ernie's cash. So don't use hers. We use hers cash to find the mortgage. But his offer, his cash. So make sure that you put the 240,000. Good job. Just checking. So on top of your 514, do plus, and then regular plus 240,000 plus regular equals, and it comes up to 754,542.05. Okay, so that is the answer. That's an offer. We'll look back at the answer, 754,542. That's it, option number 1. Question number 10, Bill Black. He purchased a house 2 years ago. So again, that's a keyword. We have a go. Which at that time he arranged the mortgage of the amount of 350,000, 20 years amortization, 5 years term, monthly payments. The interest rate of the mortgage will be 6% compounded semi-annually. That's the first J that we have in here, 6%. Calls for the monthly payments. They're giving us payments in here again. And then they give us an outstanding balance off. So you see how many things that they give us? Let's continue. 5 years term. Has just received an offer to buy his house from Mark. Mark offers 50,000 cash. Assumption of the existing mortgage. And they say the rate for the current 3 years term mortgages will be 3.5. So we have enough information. We're looking for the Mark's offer. So if it's an offer, we need to have his cash at the bottom. How much Mark offers? He offers 50,000 cash. So I'll take that 50,000. I'll put it straight up at the bottom. I'll put it plus 50,000 cash, and that will be added at the end to find the offer. We're going to use the 6%. That is the first rate that's given to you to find the payments, compounded semi-annually. Payments are still monthly in this question. Okay. What else do we have? We need to have the end and the present value because we're looking for the payments at this point. The N, is that given to us? Yes, it is. It's given to us as 20 years. So N is okay. So 20 shift N will come up as 240. Okay. Present value, do we have that? Mortgage? Yes, we do. How much is the mortgage in this question? This is the mortgage will be given to you at 350,000. So we have all of the information to find the payment. Do you see what I'm thinking? So we had a question when N was missing, and that's when we had different options how we would do the question. But in this question, you see how we have everything? We have the J's, we have the N, we have the present value. So can you find your own payment? Yes, you can. And if you can find your own payment, I would just find our own payment and then match it up to what they want, which is $24.93. So let's find the payment. Your payment will be very similar to that. It should be pretty much the same. It's probably going to be with the 92. So we'll find the payment right now first. Let's start with your G's, 6, 2, and 12. It will come up as 5 point something, nice and close. Let's do it together. So 6 shift norm, 2 shift PYR shift effective, 12 shift PYR shift norm, 5.9263. That's good. IYR PYR, cross them off. Start with the N, so 20 shift N will come up as 240 months, 350,000 PV, 0 plus minus future value. So I'll say it again, future value, when we do multiple steps, you're going to put 0 when you're looking for the payment. When they say there's an outstanding balance off, this is when you press the future value, it will be matching to that future value, to that outstanding balance that's given to you. We'll see. Let's just pay attention to this one. But when you're looking for the payments, put that 0 into the future value. So press the payment, came up to 24.92 as a negative number, 24.92.65. Right? Do you got that? What are they referring to the payments? So they say that they want payments to be as 24.93. Do you see this one? So 24.93. So basically, instead of telling them that, hey, we want the payments to be to the next higher dollar to be increased, they just tell you that payments are going to be as 24.93. So do what they ask you to do. So if they ask you that payment needs to be that, then change your payment to what they want. So on top of your screen, you're just going to put the new payment in. So 24.93 plus minus BMT. And that's all you do right now. So on top of it, let's just plug it in. So 24.93 plus minus BMT. Payment is in. Step number 1 is done. Step number 2, this is when we're going to do the nuggets and fries. And when you do that nuggets and fries, that future value will be the same as the outstanding balance. They give us a term of 5 years. So I'll put that 5 in here. So 5 years term. So we'll do the term first no matter what. Right? So 5 shift N press future value. When you do 5 shift N, will come up as 60 months. So 5 shift N, you get that 60. Press the future value. How do you know if you've done a good job? That future value should be lower than your present value. And it should be negative 296,762. Did you get that? That is a future value. Let's match it up and see if it's the same one, 296,762. Do you see how nice that is? Don't worry about the last pennies. We never change the outstanding balance. We keep it as is. So don't worry about it. Okay, keep it as is. So my question, so are we finished with the step number 2? Are we done? We've done the term, but we still have that 2 years ago. So if it's a 2 years ago, right, 2 years ago, then what do? That means we have to do something extra. So 2 years ago, So that means somebody paid for 2 years, and now you're assuming his mortgage. So what's left in here? So 5 minus 2, that gives you 3 years left. So you're going to do that 3 years right now, that assumption as your new end. So 3 shift end, it will come up as 36 months. So right now, when you have that outstanding balance, let's continue. So press 3 shift end. And when you see 36, you stop. Okay? So step number 2 is only done when you've done 2 parts on the timeline. Next one. Step number 3, your second market rate, which is 3.5 compounded semi-annually. 3.5 compounded semi-annually. Payments are monthly. So let's just do the end happening here. I have no space, but you can do it. 3.5 shift norm, 2 shift PYR shift effective, 12 shift PYR shift norm. You should get 3.4747. That's your step number 3. So that should be the conversion. Step number 4, you press PV. And when you press PV, it should show you your mortgage. 352,537.41. Is that the answer? Because that is a mortgage and they're looking for the offer. He wants to offer you 50,000 cash on top of it. So just add. So plus 50,000 cash, and it should come up to 402,537.41. Okay, so that's what I got. So 402,000. Look back at the answers. Option number 4. That's it. You should like those questions now. We have 2 more questions and that's it. Question 11. Mike bought a house 2 years ago. Put a star next to this question so they like this one too. So he bought it 2 years ago. That's one of the keywords. I'll put that 2 into the ago right at the bottom there. And I should put it right in the line to ago. Okay, so I'll put it here too. What else do we have? Mortgage rate is 9.5%. Semi-annually with a 10 years amortization and the term. And then the second rate will be 12%. So you see that is a PIM question. We have 2 rates. They're looking for his offer, right? So that means we need to have the cash. So what is the cash in the question in here? He's buying the house with 50,000 cash. So what do you do with 50,000? You'll put it straight at the bottom. So plus 50,000. So this way you're not forgetting that cash. Good. Okay, so let's find the payments. Let's pull up the J's. The first one you always use what's given to you as the first number. So 9.5 semi-annually. So J2 9.5. Payments are monthly. Okay. What else do we have? The mortgage is given to you for the 10 years term and amortization. So let me show you something. So when somebody gives you the same number for the term and amortization, so if I had to draw the line in here, and I had to put the 10 years, and I had to put the amortization and term as one line, what would you do in step number 2? Do you have to do the nuggets and fries? Do you have to do the term in here? Why not? Because the term is the same as the amortization. So they could have said that as fully amortized. Remember those options? It's the exact same thing as the term and amortization is the same number. So what it means, that means they fix that 9.5% all the way for 10 years. In British Columbia, we don't have mortgages like this. But for the example, if they give it to you, there's no that you don't need to do this nuggets and fries. You're not doing this stuff. Okay? The only thing that you will be doing here is the 2 years ago. That's the only thing that will show up on the timeline. How would you do this? You don't touch the 2, you don't touch the 10, you're just taking that difference between those 2, and that's when you're going to press in here. So we'll come back to this one, but let's just finish everything else in here. So 10 years amortization, so I'll put the 10 into the N. 10 shift N. Next one, PV is your mortgage. Mortgage was given to you as 110,000. PV, 0 plus minus future value. We're looking for the payments in here, so we're looking for that. We have enough information. So let's start with the J's, then let's find the payment. Ready? Okay. So 9.5 shift norm, 2 shift PYR shift effective, 12 shift PYR shift norm. What did you get? I got 9.31725. That's done. We can cross off PYR, PYR, and is for the 10 years, so 10 shift N will come up as 120 months, 110,000 PV, 0 plus minus future value. Press the payment. Payment comes up as a negative 1,412,039. Did you get the same payment? Good job. What do you do with that payment? They say the payment's going to be, do you see how they give you that payment instead of the question again? They give it to you as 1413. They could have said bump it up to the next higher dollar, but they said we want the payments to be that much. So what do you do with that payment? You're going to bump it up to what they want. So they want it to the next higher dollar. So do 1413. 1413 plus minus BMT. So let's plug it back in. Okay, so 1413 plus minus BMT. Make sure it's negative. Make sure all the zeros came up. Step 1 is done. Step number 2 is this. Okay, that's kind of a better picture in here for you. So if you only have the ago, so you don't have the term, you have the amortization of 10 years. You have the amortization of 10 years. You have the ago. But what are you asking yourself? So look, somebody already paid for 2 years, and now we assuming that mortgage. So what am I assuming? What's left for me? How many years left? 10 minus 2 is 8 years. So you're assuming the 8 years. So what are you going to do in step number 2? You're just going to do 8 shift N, and then you stop. Because with the go, you don't press the future value. We're not looking for the outstanding balance. We're just looking to see what's left for us. So when you do 8 shift N, it will come up as 96 months. So let's do it together. So do 8 shift N, and it will come up as 96 months, and you stop. Don't press the future value. If you press the future value by mistake, you would have to put 0 back into the future value because we didn't do the nuggets and fries. And then do 8 shift N again. Step 2 is finished. Step number 3 is your market rate. What do we have? Is 12% compounded semi-annually. That is your second J. Payments are still monthly, so we're going to keep it as is. So 12, 2, and 12. It will come up to 11 point something. Let's do it together. So 12 shift norm, 2 shift PYR shift effective, 12 shift PYR shift norm, 11.71055. And PEPN is finished. So that's your step number 3. Step 4, you press PV. And when you press PV, it will come up as a mortgage of 87,795. 45. That is a mortgage, but we're not done because we're looking for the offer. So add plus 50,000 cash, and it will come up as 137, 795.45. Okay, and that is your offer. Look back at the answer. You have it as option number 2, 137, 785. Last one more, and then we're done. Question 12. So a marketing incentive to speed up a sale of newly completed by unsold condominiums. Developer agrees to provide a purchaser with the first mortgage rate at 8% rather than going to the market rate, which is 13%. So developer wants to help you out. He gives a better rate. If they pay 45,000 asking price. So let me just show you, because this question doesn't have any numbers. It's not a math question. It's just for your understanding. So by now you should understand things perfectly. So if developer says, look, this is what I want. That's a mortgage, right? I'm going to give you at 8% rate, and the market rate right now is 13%. You see those numbers? He's charging at 8%. So if developer gives a lower rate, is he going to make more or less than 45,000? By now you already know he's going to make less. And that's all you do with this question. When developer or whoever that is seller offers lower rate than the market rate, then they making less money at the end. Simple, right? So that's it. So what you just finished, guys, you finished all the PIM questions. PIMs are so good. We love them, we treat them well, and they treat us well too. PIMs are huge on the exam. Doesn't matter if you do mortgage exam or real estate exam, they'll usually give you at least 4 questions. They like to give you those questions on different timelines. When there's fully amortized, when there's a term, when there's a go, all those different versions in there. So kind of get used to stuff like this. So practice, do your homework. You don't have as much, but by now the PIMs should be one of the best options for the exams. I'm telling you, you're gonna like them. By now you should be liking them more than anything else, okay? So PIMs are done. You still have a few classes left, but trust me, you just finished all of the worst part of the whole math. Everything else is simple. I'll see you in the next class.